Hey, Desiree here with Soul Path Astrology and this week's Oracle card readings. Welcome to video number 3 and Pluto's journey into Aquarius. Everybody's been talking about this. Lots coming up. It is a huge transition, and I want to remind and invite us to remind you that Pluto's like the Lord of the underworld. Okay. And so often it's dark before it's dawn. Often there's a conflict right before there's resolution. Often what's in the way of a full expression of vulnerably and fully expressing love is all the fear, all the pinched offness around it. And so right as we come into it was getting squeezed at the tail end of Capricorn, and now you're probably going to see it a little bit more as we come into Aquarius. But it's exactly what needs to happen is to attend to this consciously and directly so that we can fully take advantage of the opportunity that allows that what's going on astrologically is opening us up to. It still comes down to us though, right? I mean, this is the energy that's available. The more beautiful world our hearts know is possible, this depth of collective, global, loving, unity consciousness thing, I mean, is what's coming online, but we can fight it, and we cannot do our work and really drag our feet into it. And this week's reading is very interesting. It's a lot about to do with money. And so the first one was poverty consciousness. The second one has to do with boundaries. So we have the have-nots, we've got boundaries, and then we've got the haves that don't want to give. The Four of Pentacles. The Four of Pentacles it's a very constricted energy. He's got like money on the mind, money holding the heart, feet on the other two coins, very rigid, very boundaried. And so there's an invitation here. It's such an interesting little message if you read all three of them about having an opportunity to connect with your relationship to wealth, your relationship to money specifically, and like, what does it mean to have wealth? Is it just money? Is it anything but money? I often hear people think that, money is the root of all evil, or that, you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have the simple things, you're not happy. And almost as though it's some kind of a either or, like you either don't have money, but if you focus on the right things, you'll be happy. Or if you do have money, there's just no possible way you'll be happy because you'll just be so fixated on your money. And my invitation is like, maybe there's a way to do also and with this reading this week, it's almost like this deep invitation to look at how money is dispersed in the world. Because you've got the hoarding money keeper here, you've got the fighting for principles guy here, and then you've got poverty conscious here, right? So the have nots and the haves. And how do we find unity there? How do we more evenly disperse the resources of the world, all of them? Land, food, clean water, fresh air, like all of our resources. How do we find a more equitable way of dispersing them? And I feel like that's what the overarching read is here. And where within ourselves, because if we want to see something happen globally, we have to find it internally, the micro as the macro, right? So internally, what is your relationship to your own resources? Do you feel generous of spirit? Is there some areas you feel generous in and others you're kind of scroogey, And is that okay? I'm not saying there's a right or wrong here, but this is just about a self-inquiry to become curious about where do you have generosity and where do you have tightness? And what is your relationship to boundaries around when you say yes and when you say no? Why? Why am I saying yes? And why am I saying no? These are important questions. Am I giving to get? Am I giving because I feel like when I give, then people will find me helpful and useful. And so essentially it's sort of like almost a manipulation. It's like you're trying to buy their favor, right? Or do you refuse to give because you feel like everyone should have just done this themselves? And, you had to work hard for yours, so they should work hard for theirs. And there is a degree of truth. I mean, we don't want to overwater, right? Some people just are always asking for handouts, but there's a difference between a handout and a hand up, right? And the difference is accountability. The difference is having healthy boundaries and checking in with yourself about why am I asking and why am I giving, right? Is this appropriate for me to be reallocating and redistributing assets Again, it could be monetary assets. It might be stuff. It might be space. It might be your energy. It might be your wisdom. Assets come in many forms, right? But if we can begin to deeply value these things and more equitably share them, not in an enably way, but in a healthy way, this is what's being deeply called in right now as we come into this age of Aquarius, is what does it mean when we look at ourselves globally? What does it mean when we look at the sum of the assets globally? How do we deal with those? How do we allocate them into who? And what are our systems of sorting that out? And these are being called into question right now. So if this was your card, I highly suggest you watch the other two videos. I'd love to hear if this is landing for you, what your ideas are around on resource allocation, on having healthy boundaries around giving and taking both. And yeah, just generally what your thoughts are. I hope that landed. This is a good one. This is a good discussion. Yeah. Yes, if you want to get a reading of your own, connection to my link to my calendars in the card description as well as the comment section. Also, we can deep dive there with astrology, gene keys, human design, numerology, cards, whatever it is that we need to deep dive to get to where you need to get to find some answers for yourself, to connect to that inner guidance system that resides deep within you. That's what we're going to do. Okay. In the meantime, I hope you have a fabulous week. Love you guys as always, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.